Alrighty, well, hey there, everyone. As you can see, I've got a guest joining me today. I've got my golden retriever little crew here as mommy needs a break, and it's daddy's responsibility after five. And so, crew this year decided he wanted to dress up as his older brother Waffles, and so he's really excited to be a golden retriever and joining us today. That's still not going to stop us from trying to get you the information that you want. And that is the top 5 stories, the top 3 social posts I've seen this week, and then just kind of a look back on the blog. Hopefully we can all get through this together. If not, I'm going to have to let this guy run around, and occasionally I'll just have to catch him. But here's our top 5 stories that I want to get into with you. First, there's a game-changing case in the real estate industry that I'm looking forward to talking with you about, because I'm sure you guys have experienced this if you bought a home or sold a home or even rented an apartment. Then there's a major warning flag coming out from regional banks, and I'll get into what exactly that is and why. Then there's a bigger question outside of real estate. We should be talking about money and things like that. And so the big question is for retirement, will you have enough money for that based on inflation, everything like that? Social Security, is it going to be here? Is it not? Etc. And then we're going to talk about one of the world's largest real estate groups had some really, really bad results. And we're going to let him down here for a second. And I'll just have to monitor him. And then we're going to finish with the final story, which is a new opportunity in real estate investing. It's not necessarily multifamily, but there is still good opportunity in the real estate space. It's all about having diversity, knowing where to look. So before we get into that, I know a lot of you guys like to also invest in the stock market, Bitcoin, things like that. So I'll just give you a quick thing. As of right now when I'm posting this, across the 3 major indices, NASDAQ leads it for the year. They're up about 27%. The Dow is the lowest at only about 1.5% up, in S&P is at about 12.5%. Bitcoin is really thriving. They're up 110% now. And then your 30-year mortgage sits around 7.8%. Fed funds is about 5.3, and SOFR is also about 5.3. So that's just for a quick market rundown if you're looking into that. Now, getting into our top 5. Let's see if this little dog will quiet down. But getting into our top 5, the first story is the game-changing case in the real estate industry. So the National Association of Realtors plus Keller Williams were found guilty on inflating home sales for commission purposes. And that could potentially revolutionize the U.S. real estate market, because now maybe instead of paying 6% if you're the seller, now you're going to be paying something lower, or maybe it's a fixed fee so that you're able to avoid that. Maybe there's also ways around, now the seller is only paying the commission to their seller agent, whereas the buyers now have to pay a commission to the buying agent. Thus, the buyer is going to be looking in the best interest of maybe lowering the cost or what's in the best interest of the client, instead of these rather high fees that have been incurred. So things could really be restructured. It's going to be interesting to see. The total damages found initially has been 1.8 billion, but that could be upwards of 5.3 billion. So be on the lookout for more things to fall out from this. But compensation structures should certainly be changing in the real estate market. And unfortunately for real estate agents, that suggests there's going to be some changes coming. Now, on to regional banks and the major warning flag. You guys might have heard of Signature Bank or SVB or First Republic, right? Small names, or not really small names, they're a regional bank. And they all failed, which had major implications for many people in the market, because regional banks tend to be the biggest lenders on real estate assets. And regulators have issued warnings regarding the potential risk, because 15 out of 18 regional banks, and regional banks, again, is $50 billion to $250 billion in assets under management. They've reported an alarming 80% rise in non-performing loans year over year. 80%. So this surge in lending in the commercial real estate sector is causing complications, caused by declining property values, higher interest rates, and a maturing $331 billion in commercial and multifamily mortgage debt this year. So That's a pretty bad cocktail of terribleness if you're somebody in the real estate space, especially if you're working with regional banks dealing with the declining property values because cap rates are expanding. Cap rates are expanding because it coincides with interest rates expanding because nobody's going to buy a property at a cap rate below the interest rates. And then you have all these people that were on bridge loans because that was the most effective ways to make large multifamily properties work several years ago. And all of that is coming due. So it's going to be interesting right now for these regional banks. So be on the lookout for that as well. There's a reason now why regional banks have reduced their exposure, or they're trying to restructure it, or maybe lowering their LTV. Those are all reasons that you might be getting explanations from your lender or your brokers as why it might be taking them a little bit longer, as loans are the lowest since basically 2011. Now, a quick shift from real estate into money, because real estate and money, they pretty much coincide. We want you to unlock your generational wealth. And, well, part of unlocking wealth is being able to retire and retire comfortably. And so I went down a big rabbit hole this past week. I won't get into the full details on it. But really what I was finding is that it's going to be a challenge for a lot of people to effectively retire. And what I mean by that is, people are inherently, especially in the corporate world, we're not really taught to think of a second stream of income. And so we pay into Social Security and we hope that our incomes will ultimately just continue to grow. Our 401k will get matched and everything like that. But when you don't factor in inflation and then the fees that those 401ks take out of it, you have to really think about whether you're going to live at the desired income level, or like many of the baby boomers that we're seeing right now, they're now actually having to go back and work again just to kind of make ends meet. So I actually have a calculator I put together just on my Excel sheet. Message me if you want it. I can share with you. There's nothing private about it, where you can input your own custom values, and then you can really see like this is the desired amount of money that I have, and this is the desired age to retire, and then you can work back to figure out, okay, so what do I really need to do? Is it getting a higher paying job, or is it investing in multiple streams of revenue generated from a passive standpoint so you can offset your current job that you really like working? So it's not one size fits all, but it should do something for you. So now let's move on to the world's largest commercial real estate group filing some major issues. And so CBRE, I'm sure you guys have heard of them. They are legitimately the largest in the world. And they had a difficult last quarter. And by difficult, I mean their net income was down 57% versus this time last year. And their cash flow from operations was nearly halved. And their net revenue decreased by about 4%. And the CFO, Emma Gimartino, I believe her name is, she highlighted the decline in commercial mortgage origination, advisory services, all of these things that we see in the real estate space kind of going down. And she really suggested that things aren't going to be turning the corner anytime soon. She was hoping by this time next year, they would have a positive quarter or something moving in the right direction. So that really means buckle up for another 12 months of fun. It's going to get very interesting. And just so you guys know, CBRE did their quarterly call. They're the largest. There's going to be other groups doing their calls after this. So don't be shocked if you see similar type news stories, because if it's hitting the biggest group in the world, it's going to be hitting other groups too. It's kind of like a contagion, just like banks. And to turn it into a more positive note, because I've hit some pretty big red flags recently on the news perspective, we're going to move this over so crew can stop hitting it. But to turn things in a little bit more of a positive perspective, there's a new opportunity in real estate investing. And I've been big on multifamily. I've been big on Airbnb, and I love those two models. But single family has had some really, really strong returns. And in markets that you would typically not think of. Think like Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm originally from there, so I get to say that. But it's in the markets where you don't have as many institutional type investors, but these single family markets are growing and they're beating out multifamily type growth from a rental standpoint. And the reason being single family homes are growing so well is because there's a shortage of housing, there's the affordability crisis, and it's the inability for millennials like myself to actually afford home ownership. So you have more renters, but they still want to get out to the suburbs and live in single family homes versus maybe in a multifamily in an apartment complex in the urban area of the city that they live in. So as a result of that, people are still trying to get into single families, but now they're just renting it instead of buying it. And it's a really, really strong return if people are trying to look in there. Again, if we go back to like 2008 during that crisis, and sorry about that, he's doing some fun things over here. If you get back to 2008 financial crisis, all the institutional investors, all the banks bought up a lot of these single family homes because they knew that's where the cash was at. Now it's an opportunity for a lot of real estate investors like ourselves to find the right opportunities that might be sitting out there in these areas that the institutional investors are not looking at. And sorry about this lighting here. Let me see if I can dim it a little bit so it doesn't hurt the camera as much. But that's the fifth story that I wanted to share here. I know I'm a little bit more over the place, so I want to give you the rundown. Game-changing case in the real estate industry when it comes to real estate agent fees. Then we got the raising the warning flag for regional banks ever since you had SVB, Signature Bank, First Republic, etc. The big question on if you can retire effectively at the desired income. I've got a calculator for that. I've also got the Social Security calculator list that I can share with you. So you can do your own math to figure out, are you trending in the right direction or do you need some help? If you need some help, hey, come talk to me or come talk to a few other people that I might know. There's ways you can do that. And then we've got CBRE with their issues and a great opportunity in single family real estate investing. So I want to now shift our attention over to the social media world. And Alex Hormozy, some of you love him, some of you hate him. I personally like him. I think he's great. He's rather entertaining. He's always sitting on a couch just yelling into a camera. I'm pretty much not doing much better. I'm standing in my kid's nursery while he screams, and I talk to you about other things. But whatever, we're going to try and make it work. And I just noticed today I'm actually wearing a Salty Crew shirt to maybe in homage of my son Crew. But what Alex laid out and I kind of really enjoyed was the comment he says, one of the hardest business lessons I've had to learn is you don't try to get bigger. Instead, you try to get better. The better you get, the bigger your customers will demand become. So quality creates demand. Demand creates growth, not the other way around. I know I've definitely been guilty of this, so sorry if any of you guys ever actually watch this, but I'm probably talking to an audience of one person. Let's be real. If I put out too much content that isn't engaging or educational, then that's just like spamming or annoying people. And my apologies if this is doing this to you. By now, you've probably turned it off. So it's always about trying to create value in serving others. That's really my intent of this. I want nothing out of it than for you guys to hopefully be able to learn from some of the mistakes I've made and be able to carve your own path to success faster than the blood, sweat, and tears that I've had to put into it. And I may not show it on camera. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that maybe I'll write a book someday talking about some of the heartaches, but that's another day over a beer. So then there's another guy. You probably haven't heard of him. His name's Chris Etheridge, works in the financial industry, and he shared something that I found rather relevant and something that all of us should be mindful of, and that's the potential sunsetting of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. So if somebody's not familiar with that, what that essentially did back in 2017 and the sunsets at the end of 2025 was it lowered down the top marginal tax rates from like 40% down to 37%, but it also increased things like the standard deduction that individuals and married couples could take. So historically, before 2017, the standard deduction that one could take was $6,500 a year, and for married couples, it was just below $10,000. Well, that actually increased with the passing of the TCJA, if you want the acronym. That actually increased to $12,400 for single people and basically $25,000 for married couples. If you can take that as a deduction, well, now think about the amount of taxes you just saved there. Then the other thing to really think about is the shifting of the marginal tax rate. So they're going to take things from like 37% back up to basically 40. The 24% goes up to 28%, 22% goes to 25%, the 12% goes to the 15%. Not to mention the tiers are also adjusting. The biggest and most noticeable is, as of right now, with the current TCJA passed, is the 37% marginal tax rate hits when it's over $628,000 of income. If this law sunsets, then the 39.6% or 40% tax rate applies to any earned income over $470,000. And those numbers continue to shift down. So like, for instance, the 24% tax rate, that was up to $330,000 with the current act. That would actually shrink down to $233,000. So it's not just tax the rich, it's pretty much tax everybody. Even the people making $0 to $20,000 at the 10% tax rate, that actually shrinks down to $18.6 thousand. Tell me how that makes sense when inflation has increased and everything like that. You would think it'd be the other way around. But just be wary of that. Work with the CPA, get some tax strategy done, figure out ways to maximize your income, minimize your taxes, things along those lines. Again, I'm not a CPA. I just use a really good one to help me strategize every single year. Now, another guy, Ash Patel, love him. He's from Cincinnati, Ohio, so I have to shout him out there. But he had just a simple post, and it was echoing something from the Wall Street Journal. And all he said was nothing needs to be said except invest beyond multifamily. Again, I love multifamily. I will always advise investing in multifamily because it is a stable cash flow item. There are certainly challenges going on in the real estate market right now, but show me a place that hasn't experienced any challenges in the past. It doesn't exist. And so what he was sharing was the fact that strip malls are back in play. And it is true. Strip malls are really back in play. When you look at it, strip malls have increased like their annual visits just in the last year, like post-COVID, by 18%. And that's driven by the fact that, strip malls don't actually need a major anchor like the malls do. Strip malls can, you'll have your Starbucks or your Dunkin' Donuts, but you're also going to have your FedEx and UPS. And what's so beneficial about that is that if you have, if you go run an errand, you want to pick up some coffee, and since a lot of people are ordering things online endlessly these days, they also have a lot of returns. So you can go get your coffee, you can go to the UPS store, drop off your returns, and then you can head back home, or maybe you pick up some Chipotle or what other food item might be in there. So there's actually been a lot more retail demand in the strip mall space. It's extremely interesting. You even have medical offices trying to get in there because they know go where the traffic is. Think about food delivery. Even back store items, like a GoPuff might want to go in there, or a Getter, because it is so close to the road. It allows for quickest convenience of drivers getting to the end consumer faster, which we always know in an in-demand or on-demand society, we want things right now. And so strip malls, definitely look into it if you haven't. I have looked into it. They are enticing. I have not personally purchased it because, again, I have focused more of my life in Airbnb and multifamily investments, but it does not mean I won't invest in the future. So that's my 3 social posts. And now I'm going to finally shift the attention to, well, actually it's perfect because I'm holding him here today as he's holding on to, I don't know what this is, but it was Crew's birthday last week, right, Mr. Crew? And he turned a whopping 1. He still doesn't know how to say anything, hasn't been able to walk yet. He'll do his occasional wave if he wants to. But, for his birthday, he asked that I write a blog pseudo about him, but he wanted me to actually share the 6 major things from a personal finance perspective that he has taught me. And so I just wanted to share some of a quick 6 tips that he's given me, because realistically, when we think about money, real estate, personal finance, you have to understand your risk levels. And prior to me having a kid, it was just my wife and I could take a lot more risk. I loved taking risks. It was calculated risks. But then once you bring in another life into your family, you have to readjust your risk factor. And that's exactly what I had to do here. And so as I've been going down this little rabbit hole for the last year now with him, he wants to come back up now. As I've been going down this rabbit hole, I've figured out that these are kind of the 6 major tips that I could share with you. Hopefully you're already doing it, or hopefully you're more seasoned than me and you have a lot of success with it. But the first one is, and this is, pretty straightforward, but create a budget and mind those expenses. I've got a budget flow chart I'm more than happy to share with you. I actually found it on a Reddit guy. He doesn't exist anymore, but I've been following it for years, and it's really, really helpful and something I would advise. And then, so when I'm talking about from a budget perspective, is that he is really not having a good time right now. Sorry, I'm losing track because he's yanking on me. But when you create your budget, you want to consider items that you don't want to splurge on. Baby clothes, for instance. This guy has gone through tons of different things. I don't need designer clothes or matching sets with me because guess what? He's going to outgrow it in about a week. So look for hand-me-downs, look for thrift stores, things like that. Make sure, of course, they're finely cleaned and everything like that. But don't over splurge. Also, try and figure out things that you're no longer using anymore. I will say after having a kid, contrary to popular belief, I've actually drank less because I don't want to be hungover when dealing with things. And so I don't need that wine subscription anymore. I've redone my internet and cable subscriptions because now Disney Plus is a thing, or YouTube Premium because he wants to watch Miss Rachel again. But maybe I don't need the standard cable package. And so there's all these expenses that you could essentially eliminate if you just look at your monthly budget and figure out what you want to be at and what are the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves. Once you have that baseline, then we can move into the next part, which is an emergency fund. An emergency fund is really just covering your next 3 to 6 months. Unfortunately, in today's environment, there's a lot of people getting laid off just because it's a challenging economy. And if you're an entrepreneur or an independent operator, it's also a challenging economy for you because guess what? If you do like consulting type work, the first thing that corporations cut are third-party fees. Then they start looking to cut their own employees. So make sure you've built out your emergency fund to be able to at least weather the storm for the next 3 to 6 months. After you have that, get into something that is a scary concept. Full disclosure, I do have a life insurance license. I got it back in college when I was at Northwestern Mutual. But get life insurance. And not, again, insurance is scary. View insurance not necessarily as insurance, but an investment vehicle. I know people can't technically say it that way, but I will just tell you what I have personally done. Back when I was in college, I got a whole life policy. That was the worst idea because a whole life policy, truthfully, doesn't grow. It doesn't beat the market, and people always say buy term, invest the difference. Well, there's actually new policies out there, and one policy that I've personally, so again, I'll only recommend things that I've actually done. One policy that I've actually done is I went out and got an index universal life insurance policy. It is essentially the idea of buying term but investing the difference. So I will have a life insurance policy that will have an amount that covers a death benefit, but all of these excess funds are actually geared towards being able to invest in the stock market or indirectly. So they are tied against the 3 major indices and they grow at a guaranteed or a ceiling of never going down and only going up. Is there a cap potentially on the growth? Sure. So if it goes up 20% and I'm capped at 18%, then yay, the insurance company gets an extra 2%. But on years like last year where it goes down 25%, I actually maintain a 0% loss. So there is no losses for you. It can only go up, which actually helps your historical averages. It's actually, funny enough, I'm an Ohio State and a Notre Dame fan, so I really hate Michigan and I don't like Jim Harbaugh. But this guy is a genius when it comes to structuring his salary package. So when he signed his package, the biggest thing he put in there was an index universal life insurance policy that Michigan pays into. So they will pay like not $1 million a year as a premium into it, but that then gives Jim Harbaugh, let's just say he retires in 10 years, he'll probably have like an insurance wrapper of cash value amount of about like $20-30 million. He can then, if he wants to, take a loan. You don't want to withdraw it. He can take a loan against that 20 to 30 million, 0% interest, and he can live off of that. And by the way, his death value is still increasing. And so let's say he dies 40 years later and his death value has grown to $70 million based on that policy. Well, even if he took all 20 or $30 million as a loan against it, you subtract that out, he still has $40-50 million he gets to pass on tax-free to his children and grandchildren. That's generational wealth right there. That is why I would say look into something if you have the means to it to put in an insurance policy on either on yourself or, I'll admit it, this guy right here, I actually got him one because 529 plans are such a really popular thing for parents to do. But here's the problem with a 529 plan. It is only tied to educational expenses. We don't know what the college educational environment's going to be in 18 years when he gets there. We also don't know if maybe he's a really skilled musician or an athlete or something like that, and he doesn't need necessarily college per se. Well, now his funds are limited. The 529 has to get rolled into my retirement account, etc. It has a different tax consequence, etc. What if I'm putting that into an IUL policy on him? Well, with that, now we can actually take a interest-free loan against it if he goes to college, or apply for something else, maybe buying a new house, buying a wedding ring, paying for their future kid being raised, etc. So by all means, definitely look into this. I can connect you with the guys that I ended up signing my IUL policy with. They're really good guys. They explain it all. They always focus on the person first instead of, making their commission, etc. So I do like them. Happy to refer them over to you if you ever want to talk to somebody. So the other fun insurance thing, health insurance, really exciting, right? But the U.S. Healthcare system is pretty screwed up, and you need to be able to protect yourself against things that are kind of out of your control. If those moments occur, you want to at least know that you're not going to be taking a bath from a financial standpoint. Because if you ever looked at your medical bill, hell, when we had him, I think the total medical bill was probably over 6 figures. Luckily, insurance was in there and you have contractual adjustments. But if you don't have insurance, you're going to get hit with a big, big fee. So find ways to ensure that you are getting the right health insurance. And oh, by the way, you can get affordable health care as an independent operator or a freelancer or a consultant, a 1099 employee, whatever you want to call it. I actually have found health insurance for myself, my family, that is a lower premium, still gets me the same stuff that I want, same deductible amount, still out of pocket, all that stuff. And I'm actually paying less than what I was getting from a corporate plan. So definitely means you can customize things to get to the right cost and service level that you are comfortable with from a family standpoint. Corporations, they, bless them, they're at least offering you that health insurance, but they're not giving you a cookie or a customized plan. They're giving you cookie cutter, and cookie cutter costs more, especially when you have that many things to manage and you have to weigh it against other people that may not be as healthy as you are. So look into health insurance. The next thing, childcare costs. This guy, he's going to go to school someday or get daycare, you name it. And guess what? That's another really expensive thing here in the United States. And so you want to figure out, is daycare really, really worth it? Truth be told, we've run some numbers. In the Boston area where I live, daycare is going to cost you around $30,000, $35,000 a year. Say, let's just do simple math. Say you have a $100,000 a year salary. With the tax rate, that $100,000 immediately goes down to $72,000, just based on paying Uncle Sam, and he gets paid first every single time. Now, say I keep my day job there and on that $100,000 salary, so now I'm really making net $72,000, and I'm paying in the range of $30,000 to $40,000 in fees to daycare. Well, that shrinks me down to what, $30,000, $40,000? Now you've got transportation costs eating out. That's another like $5,000. So you're netting a true profit of maybe $30,000, and now you're not getting to spend as much time with your kid. So really think about that. If you can find a way to essentially create an additional stream of income of about $30,000 to $40,000, then you could actually have at least one member of your family be stay at home, get to spend more quality time with your kid, help them grow up and be the model citizen that you want them to be, but gives you better quality of life, your kid better quality of life, while still being able to make the same amount of money. So definitely look into daycare and seeing how you can ultimately solve for that. And then the final thing that'll end on, because crew is getting upset with me, is invest in apartments. I can't do a stream without talking about investing in apartments or investing in real estate in general, because the greatest way to make generational wealth is by having multiple streams of revenue. And you can't work 1,000 hours individually. You can only work one real full-time job. Everything else has to have passive income streams. And so the best way to do that, look into ways where you can grow your income through passive investments with groups that you can trust. Think about horse racing, again, from the Midwest. I love the Kentucky Derby and things like that. You don't bet on the horse, you bet on the jockey. And you want to work with the right team that has a track record of proven success. So they have that credibility that if you're putting your money with them, although past results cannot guarantee future performance, you have a better probability of succeeding, creating those multiple streams of income, and ultimately being able to live that retirement-free lifestyle that you're dreaming of. So that's everything this week. Thank you so much. We're going to thank Crew for participating in this. He's moved on to now just eating whatever, because I guess it's dinner time for him. But stay tuned next week. Hopefully things will be a little bit more sane. Take care.